Hello and welcome to this beas Industry Solution Introduction webinar. My name is Carlos Herrero. I'm Vice President of beas Group and I'm pleased to provide this session for you today. Let's start talking about beas Group. It is of course important you know about our experience and about our position in the SAP Business One community. beas Group is a company with more than 25 years of experience developing software for small and mid-sized enterprises, but always manufacturing. So our main experience is related with manufacturing. At the end of the year 2002, we decided to create beas Manufacturing as we know it today. beas is a solution especially designed for SAP Business One. It only works with SAP Business One and it doesn't work with any other ERP solution. We have support centers in Germany, Spain, China, USA, Brazil, India, and Austria. Important is also to mention there is a global partner network in place. This is especially interesting for companies with different subsidiaries in different countries because it is then easy to find partners to support local implementations. 6 of 7 and 18 of the first 22 global SAP Business One partners are implementing beas. This is according to the SAP 2014 revenue ranking. About the solution itself, our first customer went live in 2003. It happened in Germany. beas is of course a certified solution for SAP Business One. We got our first certification in the year 2004. Now these certifications are renewed every 3 years, and the last certification we got was in 2015, and it was directly on HANA. In 2010, we got the SAP certification qualified for SAP Business One. Considering SAP is evaluating our support structure and considering all the tools we have created to support our partners and to make them have success in their implementations. We have today more than 1,000 installations in 40 countries. In 2015, our partners implemented beas in more than 120 new customers. 15,000 of beas users are related with 30,000 of SAP Business Ones, and this is from December 2015. We support our solution in 14 different languages, and we are including soon a couple of additional languages. Let's talk about some of the awards we got from SAP. Especially during the last 5 years. We are an SSP for SAP Business One. It means a software solution partner, and SAP recognized us as the top 1 SSP worldwide in different categories. One is sales excellence, means we have been the SSP that generated the biggest revenue worldwide in the SAP Business One community. But not always, or not always regarding sales revenue. We also got the global SSP during the last 4 years in a row, and it is because of a combination of sales, but of course our partner support programs, education, quality, and of course innovation. In this slide, I'll start to explain you about the value we provide to SAP Business One. What is the additional value we provide? What we see here in these yellow boxes is basically the standard functionality from SAP Business One. Of course, not all the information is here, or not all the functions are here available, but we see here a CRM area, and then in this ERP box, then we talk about sales, shipping, purchasing, to manage forecast, of course, payments and bank management, but all the financial part as well, accounting, and so on. What we provide to SAP is then available in those blue boxes, and then we see also different colors. This is because Uh, we have a beas basic license, which includes the biggest part of the functionality, what most of the customers need to manage the manufacturing processes. But in blue, then we see some additional modules our customers can use and implement depending on their requirements. It is also possible to implement the additional modules in different steps. We start talking about MAP. Then you see here we talk about MAP1 and MAP2 strategies. We have extended dramatically the MAP possibilities in Business One by adding a powerful and comprehensive MAP, which is able not only to calculate the material requirements, of course, purchasing, board production, when to purchase, when to produce, and what is generating the calculation or what is the origin of the calculation. We are also able, based on an MAP2 approach, to show graphically what is the situation of the different resources in the factory and why are they busy. Is it because sales order? Is it because existing work order? Is it because of forecast? So it depends, of course, on the business process of each one of the customers. Then if we go to the next box, we start to talk about manufacturing management. Well, of course, beas is mainly a manufacturing solution. So when we talk about manufacturing management, we talk about generating work orders, planning those work orders, executing the work orders, which means to time receipts in the different operations, doing material transactions, good issues, good receipts, and more. There is, of course, a capacity planning or scheduling tool. We have pre-calculation, which is mainly an engineer-to-order tool, which helps the companies to customize the items the end customers are demanding. So, for example, in a sales quotation or in a sales order, we are able to take one item, do all the modifications are needed because our customers are demanding a modification, but we don't need to modify the master data. So this is only at the level of the quotation and sales order. And later, of course, we will generate a work order considering all those modifications. Some companies are also using that for prototyping and so on. We have a product costing analysis tool that helps us to calculate and to see the actual cost of the production, but also to compare the actual cost of the production with the planned cost. So we can see in a very detailed way what are the differences, and then, of course, take some decisions. We support external manufacturing, which means we can deal with subcontracting processes. So to send an order to a supplier, then send some parts, for example, for a specific process, and then see how the parts are returning, and then we finish, for example, the process in-house. We have, of course, also quality control. And quality control could be used during the whole business process. We can use quality control starting with purchasing. For example, when the suppliers or the vendors are arriving, then we can take a sample, analyze the sample, and then decide if this is okay, it should be moved to one or other warehouse, or if it is not okay, then go to the rejected or quarantine warehouse, and so on. But we can also use quality control as part of the operations. We can use quality control at the end of the production. And basically, we can use quality control in all those material transactions and documents in Business One related with material transactions we have. As I mentioned it before, those functions in the yellow color are part of the beas basic license. Of course, we have more functions and possibilities, but are not fully described in this graphic. Let's talk about the additional modules. We have, for example, production data collection or shop floor solution, which provide the possibility to collect time of the operations, the produced quantities, but not only, we are able to do material transactions, to transfer items from one warehouse to another one, to do picking. We are able to input values of quality control, We can do stock taking, but also some other transactions, including, for example, attendance, in the case we need to control when the workers are arriving and leaving, and more. We have APS, which is our advanced planning and scheduling solution, including a graphic interface, which is a Gantt diagram where we can see our operations, our resources. We can drag directly and reschedule our work orders. But this solution also gives us the possibility, of course, to plan and schedule forward or backward. We can also create sequence of work orders based on different criteria, like could be priorities, dates, and also specific algorithm from our customers. We have a product configurator that allows you to define different variants to produce one item. And later on, from a quotation or from a sales order with a unique item, for example, with one item code in Business One, then we are able to open a wizard and then select the different variants like colors, sizes, accessories. We have variants are depending one from the other and more. We have a project management module fully related or fully oriented to manufacturing companies, but manufacturing companies are producing based on a project where you can consolidate the whole information of sales and purchasing documents, all the different work orders related with the project, and at the end have an analysis of the budget and more. We have a dedicated supply chain management solution fully oriented to the automotive industry. We have a maintenance module which is being released this first half of the year, which will allow you to do internal maintenance but also external maintenance. Of course, today we have some additional possibilities doing maintenance even without this additional module. We have a web application, we call it beas web app, that is another technology for production data collection, but not only. You can, of course, input times and information regarding or related the production, but you can do all the material transactions you need in the warehouse, including picking, delivery, and so on. It is fully web, so the only requirement regarding hardware is to have a device with an internet browser to execute the standard HTML and JavaScript. So most of the tablets and phones, but of course wireless devices in production like Motorola symbol and so on are able to use this technology. And finally, we have an extension related with cost accounting. We call it business performance, that provide additional analytic possibilities. Very important is, of course, to mention that the solution is implemented based on business processes, and there is a configuration wizard is used by the consultant of our partners to implement the solution based on the specific requirements of each one of the companies, but mainly based on business processes. Our solution is implemented in companies in different industries, in discrete manufacturing, but also process manufacturing. In this slide, I describe the profile of customers using our solution. What you see in the top of this pyramid is subsidiaries of large accounts. Companies are using our solution in 5, 10, up to 16 different subsidiaries. Of course, we have mid-size companies and small, sometimes also very small companies. No matter of the size, they are demanding a comprehensive solution in manufacturing. The size of the customer is not the most important element. However, I can let you know that we have customers running Business One and beas with 3 users in the manufacturing part, 7, 10 users for accounting, sales, and more. But if we think in the top customers, then we talk about hundreds of licenses in manufacturing and even more, 100 licenses in Business One. Very important is to mention our solution has been created based on business processes. So from the beginning, we designed a manufacturing solution to cover the classic business processes like make to order, make to stock, but mixed mode as well. Of course, engineer to order, project-oriented manufacturing, and more. Based on our approach, then we are able to provide a solution and to fit the requirements of industries in discrete and process manufacturing. We see here some examples of documented industries where we have a specific documentation, where we have, of course, very interesting references. And we talk about industrial machinery, plant construction, metal processing, aerospace and defense, medical devices and components, high-tech and electronic, plastic processing, automotive, packaging industry. But then in process manufacturing, we talk about chemical, personal care, life science, which includes, for example, pharmaceutical companies, food and beverage, and more. Well, this was the introduction regarding beas Group. I would like now to move to SAP Business One to show you some examples. So here we are in SAP Business One. It is important to highlight we support Business One in SQL, but also, of course, in HANA. In this case, this is an SQL environment. We see here clearly in Business One, of course, the functionality is available in different business areas, sales, purchasing, and more. When we click in production, this functionality is provided by beas. The look and feel of the screens is exactly the same like the standard Business One screens. We use the same database, so the integration is very well done. To start with my example, I would like to show you one screen we call item structure, which shows you a list of different items. I can expand this a little, where graphically we see some information like those blue boxes, which means this is an item with this is a purchasing item which is normally included in bill of material, but those we see with the yellow folder are manufacturing or production items which include bill of materials, routing, and more. If I click here, then we see a small example with a couple of materials and then different operations, which is what we see in these green lines, where we can also see what is the resource we are going to use, or the default one, setup times, times to produce the parts or pieces, depending on the unit of measure. The item we will use today is this item with this description, production item, V17272. If I click here, then I can navigate and see the first level of this item. So what is the bill of material and the operations, but of course also including sub-assembly. And if I click here, then I can navigate to the next level and have a look at the structure of this sub-assembly. From here we can edit the items, so we can change quantities in the bill of materials. We can navigate to the master data of the items, and here this master data screen is an extended master data screen where we have all the information we need to manage our items in our different manufacturing processes. If we do double click here in the operation, then we as well are able to see the details of my operation, in this case laser cut, what is the predefined or the default resource do that. But if I click here, then I can see the list of different resources, then times in hours, minutes, if quality control should be considered as part of this operation, and some more information. For example, if we need then to have tools, and from here, if I click in edit, then I can navigate through the tool master data, where we have the description of the tool, where we can also define if the tool should be considered as part of the planning and scheduling restrictions, information about the maintenance, graphic of utilization, the cost of the tool, and more. Coming back to this operation, then we can also define parallel resources or alternative resources if we can switch, from example, from the default one to others, and additional attachments if needed. From here, I can also navigate to the master data of the resource. And then in the master data of the resource, then we can see, well, this is a machine, but could be a place where we have a work center with different workers. We can have external suppliers for external processes and more. If we go for scheduling, then the first we see here is a calendar which is in green from Monday to Friday. This is of course based on the main calendar of the factory. We are here not working on weekends, so weekends are not available in my calendar. And this specific machine, it's working only, or it's working 8 hours per day. Of course, I can also define some exceptions, like that one I have here on the 23rd of the month. If I click here with the right button, then I can activate this calendar, and I set here, well, the capacity planning for my resource is 0 this day because I will do a maintenance activity. This is an example. If I go for cost, then I can define here what is the cost to use my resource per hour. It could come from direct costs and then different elements at the end to consider, but we have additional possibilities. We can evaluate different activities with different rate as well, and we can also consider the labor cost of each employee is participating. At the end, if we would like to see differences between planned cost and actual cost, also depending on the salary of the workers. We can include here attachments, documents to have a look at the interruptions of the machine, if there is any, which could be reported from the terminals, for example. Coming back here, if I go now to the top, well, we are also able to edit the items to copy this full item, and then it will copy the full bill of material routing, and then later on we can edit it, and we can do a lot of modifications with 1 or 2 click, considering different possibilities we have here. If I do double click, then we go to the master data of the item, where I have the item code, different fields. It is a batch item, serial number, or other. If it is production, what is the strategy to produce this item? Is it make to stock mainly or make to order? We have a second unit of measure for bill of materials, and then we are able to define also conversions from one material on stock and then to the bill of material. We can define scraps in percent, scraps in tables, and more. If we go to the bill of material tab, then we see here the bill of material in grid, and then from here is also possible, of course, to edit, but then to navigate to the master data of my subassembly, and my subassembly in this case includes other bill of material which I can edit, add new items, and more. Coming back to our item, of course we can change quantities and more, but we can also use and define single variants. Example, if I select the model A of this item, then it will use this bill of material, but if I use the model B, then it's this one, and if I use the model C or the variant C, is then that one. And we can select that from sales orders. At the time we create also work orders and more. If I go now to routing, then here is where we define the different operations we will do to produce our item, where we see some of the figures we saw in the operation screen before, but also from here you can relate the operation with the resource and see additional details. In quality control, we can define what are the processes to consider in quality control, or the quality control we will apply to our item. It could be more than one. In this case I have one, but then here we define, okay, what are the rules? Is this a quality control I will apply for a specific customer or a specific supplier if I am purchasing? Is it valid only for a range? Is it valid for a quantity only in the case transactions are happening in one warehouse? Is it in a specific transactions, and then we can see all the material transactions and documents with material transactions available in Business One. And then, of course, we can navigate to the quality control inspection plan, where we define rules to release samples, what exactly should be analyzed. In this case, I have dimension and then some values and quality control and pH percent and more. We can include attachments, documents that, for example, helps the workers doing the quality control. If I come back to master data, then we can see, well, what is the stock available in all the different warehouses, what is the committed, if there is coming something from production, and or are we going to issue some materials because of production. Hard reservation is also a concept we add to SAP Business One. So to block some materials, for example, only for a work order, or finished items blocked or reserved because of a sales order. We can see the planned cost of our item. The system is able to calculate this based on a calculation schema. We can freely define. In this case, I'm considering materials, external processing, of course, the labor and machine cost, shipping cost, sales and administration, where I applied some additional percent. And at the end, this gives us cost of sales. But the system is able to recalculate the cost of our item every hour, minute, week, day, months, year. It depends on our needs. We have tools to execute some processes in beas, of course. And then we can see the evolution of the item because of material cost or labor cost. And not only graphically, we can also see here what was the cost of this item when we started to produce it in 2011 because of materials, because of production, and so on. And what is then the cost the last time we did a calculation, which was on summer, for example, last year. But this information is stored in the database. So from here, we can transfer that to an Excel. And then we see here at the end the Excel. And of course, we can do what Excel allows us to do later. We are able to include additional descriptions with formats. We can include additional documents. In this case, for example, a PDF, which we can later use in production. Our workers are able to open this documentation if they have terminals in the factory. In the same way than pictures, if we add some pictures, we can include also parameters, so you can define the name of your parameters and then what is the value for your parameters. So this is an item we will see today in production, and we started before with sales quotation. I already created a quotation, so there was a customer called the Shaker Corporation demanding a quotation of this item, then 20. This document is already closed because we received the order. So this is already the sales order related with my quotation. And then we see here, okay, we have an order to produce 20 pieces. And in fact, we just created our work order. But there are additional possibilities to create new work orders, to make a customization of our item, to assign this to a project, and more. If I navigate through our work order, then in this case we see work order which is very graphical. Our work orders include all the details of the different materials, what are the quantities. In this case, this order has been processed partial. In the same work order, depending on the nature of the sub-assembly, then it could be included in the same work order. In this case, I have if I simplify the view of my work order, then I have a work order 525 related with the sales order 557 for this customer to produce this item, but additionally to produce the sub-assembly. If it is a make to order sub-assembly, then it could be included in the same order. If it is, in the case, it could be a make to stock item, then we will normally create a separate work order. In any case, we see here all the details with the different operations, for example, of my different workers, investing time in the different operations, which tools did they use. Then, for example, material transactions. So in this case, then this is a good issue. Happened at this time in our work order, and from here we can navigate to the journal entries in Business One, and of course the journal entries will depend on the definitions we have. And then, for example, a good receipt. This is the good receipt of the item, in this case my sub-assembly, which is already available on stock. And in this case, we see this is a batch-oriented item, so I can see how the system generates the batch automatically. If I do double-click here, then in this screen I can see, well, this is a batch for our sub-assembly, and it's on stock after this receipt, which has been created in the work order 525 for Airshaker Corporation, and this is the quantity. But if I go back to this part of the screen, then we also see what was the material we had issued, and then when came to stock, so when we did the good receipt, and then when was the good issue, and from here we can navigate to the good receive purchase order as well. So everything is then connected. If we come back to our order, in this case, to finish the order, then we see here there was already a report. Carlos Herrero invested 60 minutes doing 60 pieces in the milling operation. Some materials were related with that operation, and this is what we see here in the pink numbers. So 10, 20, 20, 30, 30 means this first item will be issued when the operation in the position 10 is reported, but then those in the 20 and those two others in the 30. And MAP is, of course, fully related with that. If I come then here to finish this order, then I simply need to report those times and then to issue those materials. But before of that, let's have a look at the MAP, because I don't know if I have all the different materials. And then here we have our MAP wizard, where we define our scenarios with all the variables we need, considering forecast in Business One or not, and then different ranges of times or products and more. Because it is an MAP tool, we are able to have a look at the resources situation. For example, we can filter. I know we will use some of the resources here, like this one here, this one here. I think milling as well. Of course, we can select all or keep attention in some. We can see in a daily way when these resources are busy, in which percent, for example. And then if I do double click here, then I see why is this resource busy this time, because it's coming from this order and so on. But we can also click and see, okay, how is the situation in a weekly, day or monthly? And then we can see different colors, because the system is anticipating us how busy will be this resource once we convert some sales orders we already have in the system with, of course, production items. And in yellow, this is coming from forecast. For example, a forecast to produce some items during the next quarter or something similar. Then the combination of colors. But if I go down, then, for example, here in welding, I can detect I have a bottleneck, or will have a bottleneck in June. And if I go down, then what is the situation with the others, and so on. Of course, if we use later IPS or manual, or doing a manual scheduling, if we don't have APS, then we can balance the situation of the different resources. But if I go to the order recommendation, then we will see the recommendation to purchase items, to produce some items, when exactly to when the items are needed on stock, when do we need to create a purchase order to receive the items on time, based on lead time from the suppliers. Every week, what is needed to be purchased, so I can purchase item by item, or I can simply click in the column and say, I would like to buy exactly what I need only in this week, for example. And then, of course, in this part down, then we see from where the demand is then coming in each one of the different items. And then from here, we can purchase items if we don't have enough stock. I, of course, know I have stock to finish my work order. So in this case, what I will do is the order we were working with was this 525. Of course, we can come here and filtering. So to finish this work order, I will print here the work order to show you two different possibilities. We can work with a barcode reader, for example. You see in the details of the work order we have the barcode here, or we can work without barcode by reporting times and quantities manually in the work order, which I will also show. I don't have a work order reader with me, but I will simulate using it, and the barcode is exactly the same, this number we see here, which is in this case 319.58. So let's keep that in mind. Imagine I printed the work order. Here I'm able to look in the menu, to search in the menu the terminal. If the workers are in front of a terminal, this is parameterized to see only this screen, not the menu on the top or not the menu on the left. And if I include my ID, then the system show me all the possibilities I have in the terminal. Of course, it will depend on the license we have, because there are different licenses depending on the functionality is needed. But also, if I click in logout, no matter if this is one terminal, if I go as 007, which is who is James Bond, working also in my factory, James Bond has less options than Carlos Herrero. This is because in the personal part, in human resources, we can define exactly the profile of each one of the workers and decide what is the specific functionality they should see in the terminal. So I log in again. If nothing happens in 20 seconds, there is an automatic logout. In any case, what I will do is to log in one of the operations. Then you see I'm expecting to report time in one of these operations. We can, if we have a touch screen, when we can click here directly, or we can use then this barcode. I'm shooting against the barcode or simulating I'm doing that. We can also from here see, for example, the picture or the technical information or the information about the item. So this is what we have in master data. So I will click in login. I think this one is closed already. Let me check. Oh, I made a mistake and selected the wrong work order. Sorry. Then is this one? Yeah, the 20, because the first one was already closed. So then from here, then I can do, for example, login. But you see, this machine is already stopped. So then from here, we are also able to change to another machine which is active. For example, I will do it in this one. So then I start to work on this other machine. If I refresh the screen and open here, you see Carlos Herrero is already working here in this operation. So let's give him at least 1 minute, and then we see how the system will calculate the time automatically. What I'm doing is opening the work order, and then once I finish, I'm now a worker, once I finish, I will come back to the terminal and say I just finished it and report the quantity, and the time will be recorded automatically. But we have additional possibilities. If I open here the terminal as well, we can click here in the production time received, and then manually include the values, or simply do back flushing in the last operation, which is also possible. Anyway, I will click in log off. I will select this order where we are working with. You see the system changed the resource. We can make partial receipts or complete. I will complete this operation, and then the system asked me to confirm the quantity of some of the materials. We can select materials with batches automatically. We can define some rules, change the quantity, and we can say here, well, the true is that we issue 18 of this one, but also 6 of this one, which is more than planned. So I'm able to report exactly the quantity we are using in the process. If I refresh the screen, now you see this operation has been completed because Carlos did the time received. Now to finish, then it's simply to report the last operation and then issue the other materials. I can also do it from here if I don't have a terminal, and then I will do it in this operation. I can select, for example, Carlos Herrero here, from 12:01 to 12:55. So in 54 minutes, he completed the operation. And then I confirm the materials with this a parameter. This is a parameter. It is not mandatory to confirm the materials, but it is an option. And then the system finished the order. Here I have the receipt, so I have already the items on stock. I can see the full tracing, so all the batches were issued and when and which documents are related. In this case, we can also see in the batches if there is quality control and more. Now I'm also able to, of course, I can execute the quality control and then finish the process. And I can also have a look at the planned cost and the actual cost of my work order, where we see here all the different transactions, the quantities, the values of each one of the transactions, depending on what we reported, the time received from the different workers, where did they at the end reported the different activities, what was the time, and at the end what was the full cost of my work order. But if I go to the next tab, then I have a similar report, but in this case we see for each concept, then we see actual and plan, then materials, actual and plans, then the times, actual and plan, and so on. So if I go down, then I can see, okay, what about the cost of sales? Yeah, the plan was 5,000 and something else, but it cost me 4,000 and a little bit more. So where are the difference? Let's see, for example, in labor and machine cost, and then we see plan 1,400 and the actual was 100. So the main difference is, of course, here. We can also see if there are differences in materials, but we can clearly see that our workers have been investing, for example, less time than planned here in this assembly operation. Instead of 250 minutes, someone invested only 54. Therefore, the cost was different. And then we can see, oh, okay, this was Carlos Herrero at this time, and so on. So this is one example of managing a work order. Some other interesting functions are, for example, in capacity planning. If I go to APS, we have the possibility to see the list of our work orders and then create sequence based on priorities or dates or a specific algorithm which could be included here. Then you can schedule backward or forward your different orders, and then you can see in the Gantt what is the situation of your different orders, where we see here how busy is also the resource, when are we finishing, is it on time according to the delivery date, what about this other order here, and so on. Of course, we can also see that based on resources. If I click here, then we see not the order, but then the resources, how busy are the resources, and what is the relationship between one operation and the others. And of course, we are able to drag directly here and reschedule our order. So I can simply take this, for example, here and decide, well, I have no any problem starting this order before, and the system will check we are not using more of the finite capacity of each one of our resources. If I come back here to this part, I can also show you an example with the product configurator. If I open sales order, for example, and then let's say this parameter technology company, which is interested in an item I have called smoke damper. And then if I click with the right button, then you see configuration new. So I will open this one, and the system opens a wizard where I'm able to see, well, picture, description, then here, okay, the metal profile length I would like to have in 22. I don't want it in red, I prefer that in yellow, and the width will be 800. And if I go to accessories, then this handle type I want it round. We can have some variants depending on others, and if I go to the result, then you see the system is calculating the prices depending, of course, on the selection. And at the end, the full definition is here. I have the possibility to create my own script to rename this based on the selection. Then you see also the description is smoke damper yellow 800 with the price and so on. If I click in update and I click here, then you see we transfer the price. We can also see part of the description here and so on. So I will click now and say, well, my customer is demanding this for the 8th of April, for example. SAP is telling me that I don't have a stock, but it's not a problem because I will produce it for my customer. I have also some credit limits here, but I hope the customer pays soon. If I click back and click with the right button, now I'm able to create a work order, and the system will create a work order fully based on the selection I've done in this configurator. So if I click here, then of course the articles we need and the panels and so on are, you see, for example, considering yellow ink, and then the quantities are calculated based on what we have selected. Last but not least, then I can show you an additional module as well, which is, for example, this project management. If I open, let's say, this project, then we can see a cockpit where we see the different steps are defined, and then here we can see the related documents, quotation, sales order is from if is one related with the other. We can see the times are reported in each one of the activities. For example, if there are work orders, then we can see also the work order from here, installation times, and so on. We can also see what is the situation of the budget, what has been reported, therefore what is the comparison. We can include a business one activities. We can see all the purchase documents are related with our project, all the sales documents, if engineering processes and therefore pre-calculations are also done, or configuration if we use the product configurator, services calls and attachments if I need, for example, the picture of the attachment. To finish with my presentation, I will jump again to the PowerPoint to show you an additional screen. This is a new function we just released it now, which is item version and revision control, where we have the possibility to have different versions for items, of course. This is not the new stuff, but here we can include different bill of materials in the different versions, so we can recall versions. We can have different routing, of course, as well for the different versions with documentation and more. Here we see one example of our item where I have different versions, and in each one of the versions then we call to different bill of materials routing. Is this active or not for one or for a period, for a defined period, or blocked, and documentation could be also included here. In the case the customers are using our warehouse bin location management, this is an example where we are able to define and to create a picture of the warehouse, and then we can click in the areas and bin locations. This is fully connected with the terminals, with the different transactions, including the beas web application. The beas web application is then our technology to make transactions using mainly wireless devices. But again, the requirement here is to have a browser, and then you can use tablets, phones, or a normal PC, but then opening a browser. Screens are simplified considering the typical robust devices in the factories are having a smaller screen, and then you can do your transactions including or not barcode readers and so on. We have created additional dashboards, are not included in beas Basic. It normally demands additional consulting services. For example, here we talk about efficiency rate is a comparison between personal time and production time. But of course, efficiency rate in this case, sometimes it's different depending on each company. But we have here some other examples: resources analysis, external suppliers analysis, comparisons between materials and production costs. So what is actual, what is planned. and then some other dashboards related with cost controlling. So this was my presentation for today. I hope you find it useful. And of course, I would like to thank you for your interest.